Germany loves diesel, not just for trucks, but for everyday commuter cars, from saloons to estates to SUVs. In the US, however, diesels barely hang on outside of heavy-duty pickups and 18-wheelers. But in Germany, 1 in 4 new cars still runs on diesel. Yes, cars. So why do Germans cling to diesel even as the rest of the world moves on to EVs and renewables? And more importantly, why did they put a diesel V12 in a family SUV? Follow along as we uncover Germany's obsession with diesel. Now, why would someone pick a diesel over petrol in the first place? Well, for starters, diesel is fundamentally more efficient. That means with the same engine size, a diesel will almost always deliver better fuel economy than petrol, saving you money and squeezing more kilometers out of every tank. And for many Germans, that efficiency isn't just a nice perk, it's a whole driving philosophy. Take the 2.0 TDI for example. This 2-liter, 4-cylinder diesel found in cars like the Volkswagen Passat B6 sips just 4.4 liters per 100 kilometers. Compare that to the 2.0 TFSI petrol version of the same car, which averages 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers. The Passat 70-liter tank means the diesel can, in theory, travel just under 1,300 kilometers before running dry. Enough for a Balkan dad to drive from Munich to Zagreb and back without stopping for fuel. The petrol, you're looking at around 860 kilometers on a full tank. That's roughly a 50% jump in range, a difference you really feel on long journeys. And the advantages don't stop there. Diesel engines also tend to last longer than the petrol counterparts. That longevity pairs perfectly with Germany's entire diesel ecosystem, where lower diesel fuel prices, higher annual mileage, and a culture of keeping cars on the road for decades all make owning a diesel not just practical, but economical in the long run. It's a system built to reward the diesel driver. For as long as most Germans can remember, diesel has been the cheaper fuel. On average, you're talking a 10 to 20 cent advantage over petrol, with the only real exception being a brief spike back in 2022. Let's bring our Balkan dad back for a moment. If you were making his Munich to Zagreb run in June 2025, petrol would set him back about 170 per litre, while diesel would be around 160. Over a 70-litre tank, that's 119 euros for petrol and 112 for diesel. And when you factor in that the diesel Passat can make the trip on one tank, while the petrol version is an extra 50 euros top up just to get home, the savings start to look a lot more convincing. Now, scale that to real life. The average German covers 12,000 to 30,000 kilometers a year, much of it on the country's legendary Autobahn. 13,210 kilometers of high-speed motorway, 70% of which famously has no speed limit. It's the perfect environment for a diesel. Long, steady cruising, but the most efficient. Burning little fuel, engines running cool, smooth and built to last. It's no wonder company car fleets are full of BMW 530Ds, Audi A6 TDIs and Mercedes C-Class diesels, many of which happily achieve through 300,000 kilometers or more without complaint. For businesses, that means lower fuel bills and cars that stay on the road longer. For everyday drivers with long commutes, it's much the same story. A dependable Autobahn cruiser that saves money, swallows huge distances, and refuses to quit. This wonderfully German obsession with efficiency, cheap fuel, long-lasting engines, and endless Autobahn kilometers naturally led to some truly iconic diesel power plants. So what happens if you lock a few Volkswagen engineers in a room for a couple of years and tell them they can only come out once they've built an engine that refuses to die? It's simple enough for anyone with a wrench to work on and sips so little fuel that even a broke university student could afford to commute 200 kilometers to class every day. You get the legendary 1.9 TDI. Arguably the best diesel engine of all time. Developed in the early 90s, it still powers Europe's streets today. From Golfs to Passats, vans, and even the old audio too. You won't go a day without hearing that sweet sound. Known for its impressive mileage of around 5 liters per 100 kilometers, it's virtually indestructible, often running well over 600,000 kilometers, sometimes hitting the millions. It's the perfect daily driver. Fuel efficient for the roof, cheap to maintain, and it just doesn't break. And if it does, parts are everywhere, since this beautiful engine has been transplanted into millions of VAG vehicles. Modern cars can't even dream of running this long. Americans say you need a 7.3 power stroke to haul a trailer with a single horse on it. Meanwhile, in Germany and the Balkans, there's someone's dad hauling a trailer full of building materials on a 1.9 TDI. Surprisingly, the 1.9 also offers solid tuning potential. People have pushed these engines to 400 horsepower and 600 Nm, smoking RSs and M cars alike. So, if you're looking for an engine that truly does it all, get a 1.9 TDI. While the 1.9 TDI was all about squeezing every last kilometer out of a drop of fuel, Germans also love something else just as much: cruising fast. And not just fast, comfortable, and still efficient. This obsession of covering autobahn distances at 200 kilometers an hour without constantly stopping for fuel gave birth to some of the most legendary diesel machines ever built. Cars like the E90 335D, Audi's 3.0 TDI, and of course, the mighty M550D. Let's start with the E90 335D. The E90, BMW's late 2003 series, came with a whole lineup of engines, including the famous twin-turbo N54, beloved by tuners for pushing 600 plus horsepower with just a few mods. But the engine we're interested in here is the legendary M57, a 3-liter inline-6 turbo diesel that, in its most powerful form, put out 281 horsepower and a massive 580 Nm of torque. Many call it the most reliable diesel BMW ever built. In the 335D, that went 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds, a top speed of 250 kilometers an hour, and yet an average fuel consumption of just 6.7 liters per 100 kilometers. Sure, if you're hammering it at 250 kilometers an hour, that number flies out the window. But the point is clear. This was a car you could daily to work all week and still absolutely tear up the autobahn on the weekend. And with tuning, the M57 has been pushed to 500 horsepower and 1000 Newton meters of torque, turning an everyday 3 Series into a monster. Not to mention it sounds surprisingly great for a diesel. Now let's switch brands, back to Volkswagen's premium arm, Audi, and their own diesel legend, the 3.0 TDI. This V6 turbo diesel powered cars like the A5, A6 and A7 Sportsback, as well as luxury flagships like the A8. In its hotter forms, the 3.0 TDI made 313 horsepower and 580 Nm of torque, matching the M57's power. In a quattro-equipped A7 that translated to 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds, a 250 km an hour top speed, and a combined economy of just 6.3 liters per 100 kilometers. And thanks to diesel's low-revving nature, muted exhaust note, and natural smoothness, these cars weren't just quick. They were also incredibly comfortable high-speed cruisers, the perfect blend of efficiency, pace, and luxury. But the Germans weren't done yet. No. They had to go further. If you made it this far into the video, thanks for sticking around. Drop a like if you want to help keep these videos coming. Now back to the video. Enter the BMW G31 M55D Touring. On the surface, it looks like a normal BMW wagon, but under the bonnet lives something inside. The B57, a 3-liter inline-6 diesel with not 1, but 2, not even 3, but 4 turbochargers. Yes, a quad-turbo diesel in a family estate. If that's not peak German over-engineering, I don't know what is. The result? 400 horsepower, 760 Nm of torque, and a 0 to 60 in just 4.6 seconds. With a simple ECU flash, those numbers jump up to 470 horsepower and 900 Nm, all while sipping around 6.4 liters per 100 kilometers on the combined cycle. A car that could haul your kids to school, tow a boat, and embarrass sports cars on your own, all in one package. By this point, you can see the theme. Germany perfected the art of going fast, comfortably, and efficiently. From understated rocket wagons like the M550D to autobahn-busting saloons like the 335D and Audi's 3.0 TDI, the recipe was clear. Diesel wasn't just practical, it was thrilling. But of course, this is Germany we're talking about. And if there's one thing Germans love even more than efficiency, it's taking things to an absurd extreme. So naturally, someone had to ask the question, what if we put a V12 diesel in a family SUV? December 2005, Audi unveiled something so utterly ridiculous that even 20 years later, it still feels surreal. The first and only family SUV powered by a V12 diesel, the Audi Q7 V12 TDI. 12 cylinders, 6 liters, 4 camshafts, 500 horsepower, and 1000 Nm of torque, propelling this 2.7 metric ton behemoth from 0 to 60 in just 5.5 seconds. with a top speed of 250 kilometers an hour. Audi had to limit the engine to 500 horsepower and 1000 newton meters because the top-of-the-line Tiptronic 6-speed gearbox couldn't handle more, even though the engine was capable of well over 600 horsepower and 1,200 newton meters. The 6.0 TDI, as this monstrous engine is officially known, drew inspiration from the Audi R10, the first and only diesel-powered race car to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. The Q7 V12 TDI was so extreme that only a few thousand were ever produced, even during the early to late 2000s. Arguably the peak of German engineering madness, this diesel wasn't about sales figures. It was a statement, a technological testbed if you will, and proof that diesel still had a place on German roads, even at the very limits of performance. Germany really doesn't know a limit when it comes to over-engineering. The V12 TDI was impractical, though you could get a gas mileage of 11.3 liters per 100 kilometers. When new, its MSRP for the base trim was stated at 130,500 euros, which included AC, a full leather interior, carbon fiber, and aluminium accents, Alcantara lining, a Bose surround system, as well as adaptive air suspension. They could be manually adjusted via Audi's MI infotainment system. The Q7 had enough space to carry a CEO and his family, with enough torque to haul the company yacht. It was so ridiculous and ahead of its time, it stands as an icon of German engineering madness till this day.
Thanks for watching. I would like and subscribe. Now.